Chapter 1, Introduction. In the global north, a highly respected scholar in the field of computer science spends her days applying for research grants, working towards publishing peer-reviewed articles and teaching at a local community college. However, after losing her full-time lecturer position in 2019, she now secretly spends her nights moonlighting as an OnlyFans content creator. Regardless of her outstanding academic track record and considerable research contributions, she remains painfully aware that if any of her students or peers were ever to discover her pseudo-anonymous, sexually explicit, paid subscription page on the stigmatized 18+ OnlyFans platform, the prestigious professional reputation she had spent decades cultivating would be irreconcilably ruined in a matter of the mere seconds required to spread a salacious strand of petty gossip throughout the entire department. While this elite Western scholar and covert OFCC account holder, based in the global north, desperately devotes her energies to remaining invisible and undetected on OnlyFans, another creator, based in the global south, struggles to obtain basic account recognition needed to officially monetize her adult media content. This systematically silenced South Asian cybersex worker has spent 6+ months trying to become a verified OnlyFans content creator, but per the platform's underlying discriminatory automated algorithms, has been unsuccessful in her previous endeavors due to the site's stereotypical assumption that all unverified accounts registered to OFCCs from India are invalid and most likely operated by non-human spam bots rather than real human creators. Ironically, this aspiring creator currently works for a third-party OFCC management agency as a poorly paid virtual assistant and is responsible for overseeing different high-ranking OnlyFans accounts belonging to privileged Western creators, who, with her assistance, obtained account verification in less than 48 hours after making their initial request. Stories like these suggest some of the central themes explored in this thesis, which draws on 5 months of virtual ethnographic research with several dozen OnlyFans content creators from both the global north and south. As I will show, even while OnlyFans promises content creators self-determination and freedom in a supposedly sex-positive and uncensored digital space, the OnlyFans platform, its algorithms, policies, and the social dynamics between OFCCs and customers, reproduce neoliberal, neo-colonial, racist, heteronormative, patriarchal inequalities. My resulting ethnographic research findings will demonstrate how documented disparities in individual adult content creators' exposure to adversities, barriers to success, and other so-called glitches on OnlyFans reflect a larger pattern of systemic injustice. The OFCC Project. OnlyFans is officially marketed as an 18+ platform that allows creators to monetize their media content. Rising in popularity and fame during the COVID-19 pandemic, OnlyFans has grown from a small startup company into a billion-dollar business. Yet, unlike other billion-dollar social media companies, OnlyFans is as stigmatized as it is iconic. The diverse community of content creators on OnlyFans has revolutionized the online user-based media market while simultaneously battling overwhelming adversity imposed by new unfair policies and existing inequitable social systems. Building from established theories in multidisciplinary collaborative action publications, this research project used an applied, grassroots, community-oriented, post-colonial, intersectional feminist lens to answer the following research questions. 1. What is the public's perception of OnlyFans and of the content creators who offer monetized media content on this online platform? How does social stigma around sex work shape the experiences of OFCCs? 2. What are the lived histories of individual OnlyFans content creators participating in this ethnography and what do they reveal about the platform's potential for empowerment? 3. How are neoliberal and neocolonial mechanisms linked to the intersectional oppression of marginalized OFCC identities within physical and virtual landscapes? Put differently, how do different content creators experience privilege or marginalization on the platform and how do these experiences reflect wide societal inequalities? 4. Is there a space for resistance? How can individual adult content creators' lived experience of new virtual strains of Western systematic marginalization inform larger grassroots resistance movements? My research took place against the backdrop of the COVID-19 pandemic, which revealed existing flaws in the established economic, political, social, and ideological foundations of contemporary globalized society. In 2021, those with access to the internet watched in horror as reluctantly vaccinated American celebrities posted pictures from their private jets, while piles of bodies filled the streets of India due to global vaccine disparities resulting from neocolonial stratification. Throughout the global North and global South, rising tensions resulting from the vastly inescapable evidence of unfairly distributed socioeconomic privilege directly determining individual survival outcomes, led to unified forms of resistance emerging throughout the world. Reports of collective opposition to structural oppression circulated subversive narratives within the larger social consciousness, leading many to question what had once been accepted as normal. This created a brief period of hierarchical destabilization, wherein vastly discriminatory elements previously hidden within mainstream society's implicit standard structural composition were publicly identified, critiqued, re-evaluated, but never truly eliminated. The underlying neoliberal and neocolonial mechanisms responsible for creating and perpetuating these rapidly exacerbating systemic inequalities remain intact. These decaying societal constructs have been digitally remastered, technologically adapted, and superficially rebranded during the recent global health crisis to appear vaguely progressive and modern, but in reality, they are simply old wine served in a shiny new chrome bottle. Therefore, established neoliberal neocolonial structures, like those suggested by the stories in the opening vignette, continue to subliminally produce and perpetuate diverse, interconnected forms of hierarchical dehumanization and intersectional oppression, in both physical and virtual landscapes. In addition to gaining better understanding of the power dynamics and systemic organization of OnlyFans, as a collaborative action research project, an additional objective was to better understand the challenges faced by OnlyFans content creators and to work alongside participating creators to identify and collectively build activist-based resistance strategies with the potential to empower this resilient online community. Figure 1. The OFCC Research Project website. The OFCC project aimed to inspire transformative social progress and enact genuine change on the OnlyFans platform to benefit creators. The OFCC project directly applied ethnographic research findings to help build critical community resources for OFCC empowerment and develop strategies for eliminating the larger societal stigmatization of sex workers. Ultimately, this research project gave each and every OnlyFans content creator a voice and a vote in the larger conversations surrounding the future of OnlyFans. Per this Ethnography's collaborative action framework, participating members of the OnlyFans content creator community helped design and decide the direction of this investigation as a means of ensuring 5. That this online sex worker collective would directly benefit from the knowledge produced in this study. The information obtained from this applied ethnographic research was openly shared with OFCC community stakeholders prior to publication. All participating members of the OFCC community were given access to the finalized outline summary of research results once the study was formally concluded via the official OFCC Collaborative Action Research Project website. In summary, the project contributes to the foundation of future digital grassroots activism and associated resistance movements. Figure 2. OFCC Project website. Methodological overview. Anonymous online survey. The intended purpose of the anonymous online survey was to gain a preliminary, broad understanding of the demographics, lived experiences, and perceptions of OnlyFans content creators relating to this monetized adult media platform. Initially, I planned to post the link to this survey, a PDF of the full list of survey questions, and accompanying recruitment materials on multiple established OFCC community internet forums, as a way of introducing and establishing this thesis project within the larger OFCC community. Most importantly, per the underlying collaborative action research design, I aspired to invite any interested community members to actively participate in shaping the overall direction and purpose of this research as key project collaborators by primarily filling out the online questionnaire, or later potentially taking part in one-on-one online interviews, or virtually engaging in ongoing semi-structured community conversations hosted on the official OFCC Research Project website. As this anonymous survey was presumably the easiest, most flexible, and least time-consuming option for OFCCs to engage in this project, I originally expected to receive a relatively high volume of survey responses and only a small number of interview requests. Additionally, I assumed that participating OFCCs would collectively adhere to the implicitly proposed linear research structure by first submitting their survey response, secondly scheduling an interview, and thirdly volunteering for a virtual focus group. Consequently, these early expectations proved to be wholly incorrect as more OFCCs elected to share their intricate personal histories and help shape the future direction focus of this project via one-on-one online ethnographic interviews rather than simplify their stories by filling out a survey form. After obtaining official IRB approval, I began publicly disseminating information about the OFCC research project and sharing the live link to this anonymous questionnaire in January 2022 and continued collecting responses until May 2022. After receiving a total of 20 survey submissions. Online ethnographic interviews. Virtual one-on-one interviews explored individual OnlyFans content creators' lived experiences and unique personal history on the platform in greater depth and detail. Unlike traditional interview methods, these digital one-on-one ethnographic exchanges were formatted in such a way as to provide participating creators the ability to express themselves openly and freely within semi-structured or unstructured conversations without having to sacrifice their right to remain anonymous. As a default, all online interviews were automatically scheduled on a secure virtual reality platform, guaranteeing participant anonymity by obscuring or masking participants' natural vocal register and hiding their identities behind encrypted avatars virtually rendered in private and encrypted digitally rendered rooms. Online interviews were routinely held on Verbella, unless specifically instructed otherwise by an individual OFCC participant electing to engage in an encrypted direct message chat instead. Furthermore, resulting ethnographic interactions with contributing OFCC community members collectively helped to illustrate the larger systemic issues barriers, resulting from hegemonically imposed intersectional oppression and hierarchical dehumanization, which currently marginalize OFCC realities. Moreover, these interviews outline specific, sustainable, and equitable grassroots resistance strategies to help overcome larger problems faced by the OFCC community. From February 2022 to May 2022, I formally conducted and transcribed 32 interviews with different OnlyFans content creators. Virtual focus groups, semi-structured community-driven conversations. The intended purpose of the virtual community forum was to offer an unstructured, non-commercial, and purely collaborative digital space made exclusively for OnlyFans content creators to interact with one another, discuss, and debate different researcher-generated topics. Additionally, these virtual fireside chats provided me with an opportunity to share some of the key takeaways from my preliminary analysis of the resulting research findings with OFCC community stakeholders. On 3 separate occasions during ongoing, asynchronous OFCC group discussions, the instrumental and profoundly insightful feedback I received from different OnlyFans content creators in response to a message detailing, describing, and characterizing my interpretation of evidence drew my attention to an area in need of revision. Originally, I planned to host these asynchronous focus groups on the publicly listed Community Forum page of the official OFCC research website, but later decided to move the preceding research-prompted collaborative action community conversations to a safer and more secure, password-protected group chat on Discord, after heeding the advice of 2 separate reputable and widely respected OFCC community leaders who both recommended coordinating any future collaborative OFCC conversations on this decentralized and sex worker-approved Discord app. After asking other participating OFCCs to weigh in on this matter, and learning that the majority of OnlyFans content creators already trusted and used this encrypted group chat application for their adult media business, I announced that every Monday and Wednesday from March 25, 2022 until May 1, 2022, I would be posting research results concerning a specific problem facing OFCC in the Discord chat and asking participating OFCCs to collaboratively brainstorm ideas for resolving or overcoming this particular problem as a community. After sharing the designated Discord server passcode with established OFCC community leaders and inviting them to disseminate this information within private OFCC exclusive networks that I didn't have access to. A total of 16 anonymous OnlyFans contents signed up for this multi-week asynchronous virtual focus group and enrolled themselves within the official OFCC Research Project Discord server. Literature Review. This project sits at the center of a variety of scholarly literatures, all of which help to illuminate the ethnographic data and what it reveals about the enduring inequalities entrenched within the globalized and digitally interconnected cybersocial hegemony. Neocolonialism. Hierarchical racialization, gendered subjugation, and heteronormative social regulation are quintessential hallmarks of colonial oppression. Marissa Jackson writes that the colonial empire depends on the creation of race and maintenance of racial hierarchy. In the past, Jackson argues that colonial imperialism was sustained through the scholastic legitimization of race as a discrete, inherent, and generalizable human category associated with stereotypical traits and a prescribed hierarchical value, p. 159. Similarly, heteropatriarchal categorization of gender and sexuality is intrinsic to the colonization of indigenous peoples and the promulgation of European modernity by settlers. Dustin notes that the misogyny, homo and transphobia prevalent in the West are systematically reproduced according to today's neocolonial agendas. The legacy of Western colonialism is the naturalization of devastating inequality and injustice via the hegemonic normalization of oppressive societal stratification and hierarchical dehumanization. Today, neocolonial mechanisms subliminally produce and perpetuate vast, interconnected forms of hegemonic marginalization and systemic violence to reinforce previously established Western imperialism. Aneka Marshall laments that despite living in a supposedly modern post-colonial era, those who are white, male, heterosexual, landowners still exclusively retain the sovereign authority to objectify othered groups and indexically brand them lesser human beings, p. 32. Furthermore, neocolonial oppressive power structures allow a privileged few to maintain socio-economic superiority over the differently disenfranchised masses through deceptive ideological manipulation wherein outdated Eurocentric ideals subliminally define the very essence of contemporary normativity. Jackson. 2019, page 162. Moira Dustin notes that the prevalent forms of othering in the West are methodically reproduced according to neocolonial agendas. Postcolonial feminist researchers have found that sexism, racism, homophobia, xenophobia, misogyny, and other forms of oppression are merely different intersecting symptoms of the same structural disease, the Western colonial hierarchy. Furthermore, these scholars strongly advocate adopting an intersectionality perspective within all contemporary fields of academic investigation to address the overall neocolonial construction of gender, racial, sexual, and religious inequality. Neocolonialism in the digital era. These authors, as well as many other intersectional feminist scholars, suggest that neocolonialism normalizes hierarchically stratified gender-racial expectations and heteronormative social regulation. Countless academics have researched the various ways in which neocolonialism shapes the social, political, economic, and cultural hierarchization defining our differently embodied realities. However, the role of neocolonialism within virtual communities, and the digital technologies platforms that they are organized around, has only recently become a topic of academic interest and discussion. This is due to the fact that, up until the last few decades, many categorized digital technologies as synthetic objects or tools that have the capacity to operate objectively and independently from human bias or social prejudice. Pioneers in cybersocial scholarship have since challenged this prevalent assumption and revealed that previously disregarded virtual platforms and online identities are interconnected extensions of physical reality. Rather than viewing racism, sexism, and other oppressive neocolonial pillars as individual issues, social scientists have begun to recategorize these elements as serious systemic problems prominent in both physical and virtual spaces. Benjamin argues that we cannot write off specific instances of prejudice and racial gendered violence on digital platforms as isolated glitches. Furthermore, this author states that it is imperative that future cybersocial researchers properly contextualize these so-called glitches relative to their surrounding structures and systems. Benjamin suggests that we can start to unravel the larger construction of society through the holistic, collaborative, and collective conceptualization of small interconnected glitches, proposing that multiple bad apples are often indicative of a poisonous orchard. p. 6-7, this thesis argues that the documented instances of specific forms of structural violence experienced by individual OnlyFans content creators outlined in chapters 3-5 are not isolated instances or glitches in the larger cybersocial network. Rather, later discussions of resulting ethnographic research findings will demonstrate that the most commonly reported OFCC issues, hardships, and barriers to success are merely digitally modernized manifestations of traditionally skewed systems of intersectional oppression and hierarchical dehumanization. On the OnlyFans platform, historically marginalized members of the OFCC community encounter the same old neocolonial neoliberal inequalities as new, algorithmically ingrained injustices. Neoliberalism. Mary DeYoung suggests that neocolonialism and neoliberalism are all offshoots or veiled forms of colonialism. If white supremacy and Western hegemonic masculinity are the two supporting limbs of the larger neocolonial body, neoliberal capitalism is the beating heart of this oppressive system. Neoliberal globalization dictates capital market socialization and naturalizes unsustainably constructed colonial inequalities as objective inevitabilities. Therefore, neoliberalism is merely neocolonial marketization in which unspeakable global injustices have been ideologically intertwined within Western hegemony and thus falsely made to appear normal and/or inherent to our collective reality. DeYoung, 2013. Page 5. Mohan et al. Define neoliberalism as a global political and economic framework of organizing, works through the hegemonic role of experts in producing knowledge and in developing programs and policies on the basis of the instruments of data gathering, implementation, and evaluation, simultaneously deploying participatory tools to secure community buy-in into top-down programs of social change serving the agendas of transnational capitalism. Although neoliberalism takes different forms in general terms, neoliberalism may be understood both as a globally dominant set of capitalist economic policies, typically focusing on deregulation, austerity, privatization, and competitive markets, as well as a set of political and social practices for governing people's lives through encouraging them to view themselves as bearers of human capital and individual responsibility. The last 2 decades of transnational feminist scholarship on neoliberalism have introduced numerous different critical understandings of neoliberal neocolonial market assumptions and parallel oppressive Western constructions underpinning the contemporary globalized hegemony. While the precise definition of neoliberalism can vary according to the context in which it is invoked, one of the central tenets defining this particular framework is the misleading perceptual facade currently disguising growing inequality, intersectional oppression, and systemic violence under a thin veil of vague universal ideals like progress, modernity, development, and freedom. These privileged ideals are merely a few popular variations of the unachievable, unsustainable, ungenuine, and subliminally biased generalizations currently shaping the superficial hegemonic rebranding of past colonial subjugation. Furthermore, neoliberalism is old wine, colonial capitalism, deceptively served in a misleading, shiny, new chrome bottle. For the purpose of this paper, neoliberalism can be understood as one of the pivotal neocolonial mechanisms specifically indexing Western market logics of human evaluation, providing individual consumers definition through tiered socioeconomic stratification, conceptualizing the many different dimensions of one's individual reality via the same. Free market economic rationality is a core tenet of neoliberalism. In a critique of dominant neoliberal frameworks in Western society, Ives points out that, in reference to neoliberal capitalist socio-economic constructions, the term free market falsely implies that unregulated private industry is synonymous with freedom and opportunity. p. 5. However, decades of social research and countless contemporary critical analyses have shown the opposite to be true. Brown suggests that neoliberal fantasies built upon a lingering colonial legacy translate into nightmarish realities. In reality, the free market engineered per neoliberal capitalist specifications systemically decreases marginalized groups' chances of social and economic mobility. Furthermore, less government oversight and fewer industry restrictions often translate into lower socioeconomic diversity, reduced public agency, and, as a result, fewer freedoms, protections, and opportunities under unrestricted corporate sovereignty. The free market classification attributed to neoliberal globalization is simply an unrealistic marketing ploy meant to sell inherently oppressive socio-economic systems of structural inequality by masking inevitably unpleasant outcomes behind a pretentious facade of unattainable ideals and vague promises that appeal to unaware general audiences. YouTube, monetized media and unpaid creative labor. As one of the first mainstream monetized media platforms, YouTube was among the first to offer a subscription-based monetized social media marketplace. YouTube markets itself as an open and unrestricted revenue-sharing social network where typical content creators are promised complete creative freedom to make money and express themselves through advertiser-approved, publicly posted videos and, in this way, create their own self-determined success. Additionally, YouTube seemingly offers the average user an equal opportunity to ascertain lucrative YouTube sponsorships and become an internet celebrity through individual hard work, ingenuity, and self-promotion. Kaplan and Gillespie argue that, just as vaguely framed neoliberal promises relating to freedom and self-determination have been used in the past to justify colonial-era imposed structural inequalities defining traditional globalized free market industries, YouTube's free and user-controlled media marketing campaigns are simply a technologically revamped way of reinstating the same old neoliberal myths to distract from the unsettling truth. The ideological pretense that these neoliberal labels convey do not even remotely reflect the genuine operations of this profit-share media conglomerate. Rather than constructing an equitable and innovative digital space, Kaplan and Gillespie suggest that YouTube operates per a traditional capitalist system of tiered governance. Furthermore, like OnlyFans, YouTube's hierarchically stratified organizational structure unfairly offers different users different sets of rules, different material resources and opportunities, and different procedural protections when content is demonetized. YouTube promotes unbridled creative earning potential yet fails to mention that certain undefined conditions and restrictions apply. Only creators whose personal brands align with YouTube's corporate ethos, comply with oppressive economic labor distributions, and format their creative expression to fit the needs of third-party advertisers, can hope to remain monetized. YouTube is widely celebrated as progressive and innovative as it was among the first to establish a revenue-sharing social media network system directly paying distinguished users for their creative labors. However, the progress of this platform was built upon inherently oppressive operating systems. Furthermore, sponsored YouTubers quickly discovered that, regardless of the number of likes or views they received or the notoriety of their channel, failure to adhere to the existing status quo and or jeopardizing YouTube's company profit margins resulted in the immediate discontinuation of promised payments without warning or explanation. Like YouTube, OnlyFans is similarly built on the premises of social media participation but structured more like independent contract work, bound by an entrepreneurial competition for audience and resources. Despite the platform's seemingly unique and innovative superficial appearance, OnlyFans has also adopted many of the same modernized and digitally reimagined neoliberal marketing strategies as YouTube to distract from the less appealing, traditionally oppressive realities of OnlyFans content creation. Previous research on other monetized social media outlets like YouTube have clearly illustrated that regardless of virtual or physical formatting, private corporate entities broadly claiming inclusivity, diversity, innovation, and individual freedom often do so as a means of overtly branding their company's public image in accordance with these impossible neoliberal ideals while simultaneously and silently implementing a counterintuitive tiered governance operating system favoring selective financial fortuity. Opposing binarism. Opposing binary categorization is another central mechanism reinforcing contemporary neocolonial neoliberal inequalities. Hegemonic Western perception is overtly organized around the idealized notion that objective reality exists as a hierarchy of mutually exclusive, yet interdependent natural binaries. Keng et al. Notes. Binaries are social constructs composed of two parts that are framed as absolute and unchanging opposites. Binary systems reflect the integration of these oppositional ideas into our culture. This results in an exaggeration of differences between social groups until they seem to have nothing in common. Binary notions mask the complicated realities and variety in the realm of social identity. Examples of opposing binary groups include public-private, normal-deviant, producer-consumer, male-female, logical-emotional, active-passive, winner-loser, dominant-submissive, and us-them. Each of these opposing binaries carries a disproportionately weighted social subtext that indirectly reifies imposed neocolonial narratives and skewed neoliberal systems. Constraining the plurality of our shared existence to a limited binary categorization with underlying indexical connotations subliminally serves to support the oppressive preconceptions and marginalizing generalizations that reinforce the structurally inequitable distribution of privilege and power within hegemonic Western society. Opposing binary categorization, or hegemonic Western socialization, assigns each element of a binary pair an indexical value relative to the other component. Furthermore, one part of the prescribed binary group is designated as the standard, normal, and/or implicit expression, while the other is regarded as the deviant. Marked identity categories are defined by their presumed deviation from the hegemonic ideal. For example, the hegemonic gender binary perceptually prescribes the male gender ideal greater societal visibility and/or value than the related female gender ideal because the Western hegemonic heteronormativity masculine personification is perceptually positioned as the standard or unmarked gender identity. This mechanism parallels binary computer coding systems that symbolically classify each variable, included within the program's structural matrix, as either or to determine its relative function and/or visibility per the subjective criteria established by the overseeing coder. Similarly, in mainstream Western society, opposing perceptual binaries are sorted into OR categories according to the subjective classification criteria originally proposed by privileged academic coders assigned elite structural authority over objective categorization. Breckus. 1998, page 38. Ultimately, the assumed normative construction of reality reflects the biased binary characterization of Eurocentric ideals proposed by elite institutional gatekeepers whose unacknowledged privilege stems from the continued oppression and invisibility of othered groups. Previous studies established in social anthropology, psychology, sociology, women's studies, and other related academic disciplines have clearly demonstrated a direct correlation between specific forms of opposing binary categorization and normative tiered patriarchal constructions. Sasson-Levy. 2013. Many feminist scholars have argued that different reductive dichotomies shaping hegemonic perspectives on sex workers' identities contribute to the larger reproduction of oppressive power structures. An article published by Dr. Maria Lugones, an Argentinian philosophy professor and well-known South American women's rights activist, argues that patriarchal capitalist coloniality is implicitly interwoven throughout globalized hegemonic interpretations of modernity through oversimplified and prejudicial Eurocentric opposing binary categorization. In this article, Log1 also criticizes dominant Western academic discourses for conveying implicitly dehumanizing characterizations of structurally marginalized, i.e., marked, WOC in the Global South. Moreover, Log1 suggests that many American and European scholars have published studies subliminally characterizing non-white women participating in unpaid or cheap informal labor markets in economically subjugated third world nations as inherently sexually promiscuous, dirty, diseased, deficient, and thus less deserving of the same basic rights and privileges naturally afforded to citizens of first world nations. Log1 claimed that white bourgeoisie gatekeepers controlling knowledge production in privileged Western nations subtextually imbue factual data analysis with biased fictional denigratory caricatures of historically oppressed groups, particularly WOC involved in sex work. As a means of justifying the globalized imperialistic injustices granting these elite Western scholars socioeconomic privilege and power while silenced, stigmatized, and suppressed groups continue to suffer as a result of inhumane and unfair societal hierarchization. As the next 4 chapters will demonstrate, this ethnographic research found that OnlyFans content creators who occupy multiple marked socioeconomic identities frequently experience the most severe forms of documented OFCC-specific adversities and barriers to success, both on and off the OnlyFans platform. For example, during the same week in March 2022, 2 separate OFCCs reported that their verified paid subscription account had been deactivated frozen without prior warning or explanation from the site. One of the creators who encountered this issue, a white woman from the Global North, was able to get this issue resolved and regained access to their account in under 2 weeks. The second, other creator, a WOC from the Global South, never regained access to their original paid subscription account or received any information from the platform as to why it had been deleted. Over a month later, this creator finally received an email response from OnlyFans instructing her to create a new account and resubmit verification documentation. Traditional scholarship surrounding sex work. In the past, conventionally designed and widely disseminated peer-reviewed studies, and related research discussions, focused on the histories and/or embodied experiences of paid sexual laborers traditionally fell into one of the following 2 polarized groups. 1. Arguments typecasting sex workers as poor, uneducated, helpless victims needing to be saved from exploitative depravity or villains contributing to socioeconomic decay, and 2. Opposing viewpoints characterizing sex workers as autonomously independent and economically empowered women amorally illegally pursuing profits for their own sexually liberated entrepreneurial self-interests. The prostitute is the prototype of the stigmatized woman defined by unchastity which casts her status as impure. The prostitute, or the whore, is contrasted to the female mirror image of the Madonna which portrays the image of pure femininity, that is, sacred and holy. The Madonna-whore binary projects the status of the prostitute woman as a failed example of womanhood, defined by her immoral sexual behaviors, and someone to be avoided. Furthermore, examples of sex workers included in various published research falling into the first group often embodied intersectionally oppressed identities such as marked racial ethnic characteristics, marked gender traits, and/or marked sexualities, i.e. homosexual, bisexual, pansexual, extension. In contrast, the sex workers described by different academic publications belonging to the second group were often white, heterosexual, and citizens of Western nations. However, the previous academic examinations of sex work divided between these 2 aforementioned groups similarly excluded the voices of actual sex workers from their discussions. In a recently published study focusing on online sex work, Hamilton et al. Writes, "It is critical that the voices of digital sex workers are included with the voices of other digital gig workers when developing both technological tools and policy interventions to ensure the well-being of all workers. To ensure this inclusion will require a shift from existing adversarial norms toward digital sexual content creators toward respecting these creators as digital workers and stakeholders of the digital spaces in which they conduct their work." Following the advice of Hamilton et al. For conducting inclusive, community-oriented, activism-centered research among online groups of sex workers. This digital ethnography adopted a collaborative action approach as a way of ensuring the voices of participating OnlyFans content creators were included and respected in every step of this project.